It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I just wrapped up another long day teaching high school history, sat down in my warm leather chair with a warm cup of coffee, when my phone buzzed. Mom. Hey sweetheart, she chirped. Her voice was unusually bright. Guess what? Your brother finally proposed to Mandy. I smiled. That's great, Mom. Really happy for them. Jason and I had always had a complicated relationship, close in childhood, distant in adulthood. He was the golden boy growing up, always more charming, more ambitious, more liked. But I didn't mind. We were different people. Mom launched into details, colors, flowers, venues she'd been dreaming about for years. I let her talk while half listening, sipping coffee, half watching the sunset bleeding through the blinds. Then her voice dropped. Listen, she said, drawing out the word. We're a little tight financially, what with your father's surgery and Jason just getting that new job, so I was wondering. Do you think you and Emily could help? I sat up straighter. Help how? Well, nothing crazy, she rushed in. Just a small loan, say, $10,000, to help put down the deposit for the banquet hall. You know how expensive these things get. I blinked. 10,000. She chuckled like it was nothing. You two have stable jobs. No kids yet. You're not struggling. And Jason's my youngest, my baby. This is his moment. I didn't know what to say. The number wasn't just shocking, it was completely out of nowhere. We were saving for a down payment on a home. Emily and I had been working overtime for months, cutting back on trips, watching our expenses. I'll talk to Emily, I finally said. Mom's tone turned lighter again. Great. I just knew you'd come through. After the call ended, I sat in silence. It wasn't just the money that bothered me. It was the assumption. The entitlement. Like it was my job to fund someone else's celebration because I'd already had mine. And I knew Emily, she was kind, thoughtful, generous. But this? This was going to be a problem. I wasn't wrong. That night, I told her everything while we made dinner. She paused mid-stir, spatula in hand, and looked at me. Your mom wants us to pay for your brother's wedding. Are you serious? She says they're tight on money, I offered weakly. Emily scoffed. Andrew, we're tight too. We're not rolling in cash. And didn't we just cover your dad's hospital bill 2 months ago? I nodded slowly. Yeah, but she says it's just a small push. Just 10,000. Emily set the spatula down and crossed her arms. Her eyes didn't leave mine. You need to tell her no. And just like that, I felt the beginning of a crack. Not between Emily and me, but between two worlds I'd spent years trying to balance. This time, I wasn't sure I could keep them from colliding. I didn't sleep much that night. Emily had gone to bed early, tired and quiet, but I could tell her mind was still spinning. Just like mine. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying my mother's voice in my head, it's only fair. Fair. What was fair about asking someone else to bankroll a wedding they weren't even a part of planning? The next morning, I called my mom. I'd rehearsed my words, tried to keep my tone calm. Mom. I talked to Emily. There was a beat of silence on the line, I could practically hear her bracing. And, she asked, tight and clipped. We can't help with the money, I said. We're saving for a house, and it just wouldn't be smart right now. I hope you understand. She didn't. What do you mean you can't? You won't. That's what this is. I closed my eyes. Mom, please. Don't mom me, Andrew. I carried you for 9 months, put food on your table for decades, and this is the thanks I get. Your wife says no and suddenly you forget who your family is. My throat tightened. This isn't about sides. It's about priorities. And Emily is my. Oh, I know who your priority is, she snapped. Ever since you married her, everything changed. That hurt. But I didn't argue. Instead, I said, I'm sorry you feel that way. And hung up. I hoped that was the end of it. It wasn't. That evening, I came home to find Emily standing in the kitchen, arms folded, phone in hand, eyes wide with disbelief. She just called me, she said flatly. Who? I asked, though I already knew. Your mother. I put my bag down slowly. What did she say? Emily took a breath, her jaw tight. She said I was greedy. That I didn't care about family. That I was trying to divide the two of you because I was threatened by your brother's wedding. I felt my stomach sink. She actually said that. She also called me a gold digger with no loyalty, Andrew. I stood there, stunned, rage simmering in my chest. Emily looked up at me, her voice quieter now. I've never asked your family for anything. I've been polite, respectful. Even when she belittled me. But this? This is too far. I know, I said softly. What are you going to do? That question hit me hard. Because I didn't know. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't know how to make two people I loved stop tearing each other apart. And deep down, I was terrified. Because for the first time in our marriage, I could feel Emily slipping away, not from me, but from the version of life I had promised her. The peaceful, loving, supportive family I said we'd build around us. Now that dream was cracking. And I was the one holding the pieces, unsure which ones were worth saving. After that phone call, something inside Emily hardened, not in anger, but in resolve. She stopped trying to impress my family. Stopped going to family dinners, stopped replying to my mom's passive-aggressive group messages. She still smiled at me, still held my hand at night, but there was a wall now, one built not by her, but by the people who claimed to love me most. A week later, we were invited to a small engagement gathering for Jason and Mandy. Mom's message was short. Family only. Hope to see you there, Andrew. Just Andrew. No, Andrew and Emily. I stared at my phone, rereading it a dozen times. I showed it to Emily in silence. She gave me a tired smile. Go if you want. I won't be offended. But I could see it in her eyes, she was hurt. Not by me, but by the fact that no matter how hard she tried, she was still seen as less. As outside. I didn't go. That night, Mom left me 6 voicemails. Each one angrier than the last. I didn't answer. Jason messaged me directly. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just show up. Mandy's family covered most of the wedding anyway. Mom's just being herself. I wanted to scream at him. He had no idea what it was like to watch your wife cry in the kitchen because she'd been called a parasite by your own mother. I sent back one message. It's not about the money. It's about respect. He didn't respond. Then came the wedding invitation. Mailed. Formal. Cream-colored, gold lettering. Addressed to Mr. Andrew Blake. Alone. No +1. No, Mr. and Mrs. No mention of Emily. As if she didn't exist. I stood at the kitchen counter, holding it in both hands. Emily walked in, glanced down at it, and let out a soft, bitter laugh. Wow. She really meant it. I looked at her. I won't go. You should, she said quietly. I won't, I repeated. Not like this. Emily turned away from me, gripping the edge of the sink. Her voice shook. This isn't how it's supposed to be, Andrew. We're supposed to be a team. We are a team. Then why does it feel like I'm always the one under attack, and you're stuck in the middle? That cut deep, because she was right. I had tried to play peacekeeper for too long. I thought if I stayed neutral, if I stayed quiet, somehow the storm would pass. But storms don't pass when you pretend they aren't there. They get louder. The week of the wedding came. I stayed home with Emily. Jason got married without his brother there. My mom didn't even call to ask why. She knew. And she'd made her choice. So had I. The wedding came and went, and the silence afterward was louder than any screaming match could have been. I saw the pictures on Facebook. Jason looked happy. Mandy looked stunning. Mom looked like she'd won. No seat left for me. No trace of my existence. I didn't comment. I didn't like. Emily didn't even look. For a few days, I told myself it was just the dust settling, that things would cool off, and someone, anyone, would reach out. But no one did. Then, for days after the wedding, my mother finally called. I stared at the screen as her name lit up, my chest tightening with a mix of dread and guilt. I answered. "What do you want me to say, Mom?" I began. "That I'm sorry I didn't show up to a wedding I wasn't welcome at." Her voice was ice. "You embarrassed this family, Andrew. Jason needed his brother, and you didn't show." "I wasn't invited," I said evenly. "You were." "No. I was. Emily wasn't. And we're a unit. You can't invite half of a marriage." Mom scoffed. "You've let that woman poison your mind." That word. Not Emily. Not your daughter-in-law. That woman. I clenched my jaw. She is my wife, Mom. Not some outsider. And what you said to her, what you did, was wrong. She's always resented this family, she said coldly. I saw it in her eyes the moment I met her. No, I said sharply. You saw someone who wouldn't bow to you. Silence on the line. A long pause. Then she spoke, slow and cutting. Maybe you should rethink who you married. My heart dropped. I wasn't shocked, not really. But hearing it out loud still crushed something inside me. That's the last thing you'll ever say to me if you can't respect my marriage, I said, voice low, even. And I hung up. For the first time in weeks, I sat on the couch and cried. Emily walked in, eyes wide in surprise. She hadn't seen me cry in years. I told her everything, the call, the words, the ugliness. And she didn't say, "I told you so." She just knelt in front of me and took my hands. I know that wasn't easy. But you did the right thing. I realized then, I'd spent so long trying to keep peace between two sides that were never going to meet in the middle. There was no compromise with someone who saw kindness as weakness and boundaries as betrayal. I wasn't losing a mother that day. I was letting go of the illusion that she had ever accepted Emily, or truly respected me as an adult. And that grief? It was sharp. But it was clean. 1 week later, Jason showed up on our doorstep. I opened the door and found him standing there, hands in his coat pockets, looking unsure, and older than I remembered. "Can we talk?" he asked. We sat on the porch. He didn't try to defend Mom. He didn't try to make excuses. "I should have spoken up," he said finally. I didn't agree with her. But I didn't want to make things worse. Mandy's parents were already covering so much. I just thought keeping quiet would keep the peace. I looked at him for a long time. "It doesn't work like that, Jason." Silence is aside. He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the ground. "You're right. We didn't say much else." But for the first time in months, I didn't feel angry at him, just disappointed in how much we'd all let things rot. Family isn't about sharing blood. It's about who shows up when it matters. It took months for the dust to truly settle. But not in the way I expected. There was no apology from my mother. No olive branch. No acknowledgement that anything she'd done had hurt us. She didn't ask to meet. She didn't call. She simply disappeared. And somehow, that made the wound both cleaner and deeper. Emily and I moved forward. Slowly, but intentionally. We refocused our savings and finally closed on a small 2-bedroom home just outside the city. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't what we'd originally envisioned. But it was ours. We painted the walls together. Bought furniture piece by piece. Grew herbs on the windowsill. In that quiet space, far from judgment and manipulation, I found a new kind of peace, one I didn't realize I'd been missing all my life. It wasn't loud or showy. It was the sound of safety. The warmth of trust. One Sunday morning, I was making pancakes when Emily walked into the kitchen holding a small, plastic stick. Her hand was trembling. I blinked. "Is that?" She nodded, smiling through sudden tears. I took two just to be sure. We stood there, still in our pajamas, wrapped in each other's arms as the reality sank in, we were going to be parents. In that moment, all the noise faded, the shouting, the guilt, the betrayal. None of it mattered. What mattered was right there, in our quiet kitchen, growing inside the woman who had stood by me through everything. Of course, word eventually got back to my mother. Not through us, but through distant cousins who still followed Emily on Instagram. A few weeks after our announcement, I got a single message from her. I heard. "Congratulations. Let me know when you're ready to talk." I stared at it for a long time. She didn't ask how Emily was feeling. She didn't ask if we were okay, or what we needed. It was a fishing line, a cold offer to step back into her world on her terms. And I didn't respond. Because I knew what talk meant in her vocabulary. It meant, explain yourself. It meant, bend. It never meant, I'm sorry. Months passed. We prepped the nursery. Painted it soft green and off-white. Emily read baby books every night. I assembled furniture and tried to act like I wasn't terrified out of my mind. Jason reached out a few times. More often now. He sent an actual gift, a hand-carved wooden mobile for the crib. No card. No strings. Just a gesture. I appreciated it. Mandy sent a message too, more formal but kind. For what it's worth, I never agreed with what happened. Congratulations on your baby. It wasn't enough to heal everything. But it was something. Then one night, as we lay in bed, Emily resting her head on my chest, her belly between us, she asked softly. "Do you think you'll ever want to fix things with her?" I thought for a long time before answering. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe one day. If she ever really sees you. Respects you. But until then. I don't want our child around that kind of energy. They deserve better." Emily nodded, and for the first time in months, I saw her eyes glisten, not with pain, but relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "For choosing us." I kissed her forehead. Always. When our daughter, Lily, was born, everything changed again. I held her in my arms and realized, this was the family I fought for. Not the one I was born into, but the one I built. With intention. With love. With boundaries. Not everyone gets to keep both sides. Sometimes, you have to let go of one to protect the other. And as I looked down at Lily's tiny fingers curled around mine, I knew. I'd do it all again. Every fight. Every cut off. Every broken bridge. If it meant this peace, this love, this family. Because blood may bind, but love is what builds.